Good evening, Red Star Rebels. It's February 6th, 2023. This is PodCast Season 3, Episode Number 2, and our 67th podcast so far, if you're counting. We are Red Star Report. I'm Hal G. Lohr. This is Voices for the California Nation. As the Republicans begin to flex their mighty 5-seat worth of political mandate in the House of Representatives, we're reminded of the modern conservative notion of reasonable discourse. Basically, taking a sledgehammer to any remaining semblance of political decorum, while Democrats have the nerve to stand there and look surprised. It's not like we haven't known this was coming from the Republicans since the George W. Bush administration and 9/11 anyway. As progressive Californians, we've watched the hard right shift in American politics for 23 years now. We're anything and anyone not white-skinned, uber-American, Christo-conservative, Republican, and frantically waving an American flag from a red state can be dismissed as un-American. We must take our country back, being the battle cry for Republicans for most of the 21st century. The primal scream of regressive America, where a worldview of white supremacy, Christian outrage, corporate capitalism, and U.S. imperialism obviously could never have possibly existed, and yet must never be questioned. And we, as Californians, have watched in horror, as it's become crystal clear what conservatives mean by take our country back. It's a devolution plot. An over-idealized version of the 1950s is what they're after. But obviously, not the good 1950s stuff. I mean, Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, or Little Richard and Chuck Berry. Nope. Fedoras and Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack? No. Drive-in movies or diners with red sparkle upholstery and flashing neon signs? No, that's not it. How about poodle skirts with saddleback shoes and cars with tail fins? Yeah, not even that. No, what they're doing is gaming a system never designed to prevent a hostile takeover by an entire political party willing to tear down any and all democratic and ethical principles to gain a hold on power. Willing to sacrifice the basic constitutional principles for the goal of rolling back any and all societal progress made in the last half of the 20th century. The progress that makes white bread America uncomfortable, that is. Bringing America back to the worst version of the 1950s most Californians could ever imagine. Using police brutality, voter suppression, and gerrymandering to cancel the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act. Using law enforcement and redistricting to create a new definition of the other side of the tracks. Overturning Roe versus Wade as an opening salvo before going after birth control, and in some states actually redefining many forms of rape as legal if non-consensual sex. Seriously. Moves to reoppress women and make barefoot and pregnant a goal while ignoring the reality of a collapsing capitalist economy where the nuclear family with one income is almost impossible. Enacting anti-LGBTQ and anti-transgender laws on Supreme Court protected state levels at first to remove the right to marriage and even body autonomy from people the American religious right has always preferred to see closeted, shamed, and worse. Trying to pretend they don't have to see gay people who are real in the name of a God they can't prove exists. But, you know, the whole bad historic 1950s reenactment thing didn't all fall into place for me until last week. There was one thing missing from this fascist version of Happy Days for a long-gone ideal Americana glory, and then there it was. Enter the new McCarthyism. The Congress denounces socialism in all its forms and opposes the implementation of socialist policies in the United States of America Act. After all, what good is living in a dystopian and oppressive Christo-fascist pseudo-1950s fantasy without some version of the Red Menace and the ever-present threat of global thermonuclear war? I mean, how else do you convince the superstitious moon-pied Trump-Billy capitalist in red state America that climate change, homelessness, gun violence, inflation, racism, the pandemic, and a lack of health care are not as important as what bathroom a trans person uses and the evils of teaching the critical theory of America's actual history in college? And yet, 100 Democrats in Congress fell into this fascist trap, voted yes, and gave legitimacy to anti-socialism, stupidity, and fear. Brings me as a Californian to what I think is an honest, if not obvious, question. Why didn't House Democrats not simply refuse to vote for any measure to reaffirm capitalism and condemn socialism that did not also reaffirm democracy and condemn fascism in all its forms and policies in the United States of America? After all, didn't Republicans make such demands and pull the same kinds of political stunts all the time when they were the minority party? Is it just too big a lift for U.S. Democratic representatives 3,000 miles away to understand the danger inherent in anti-socialist votes like this one that later on can and will be flipped to use against California's progressive values? Is it asking too much for our elected representatives to stop fundraising for 5 minutes and actually stand up and fight against such pieces of toxic political theater being normalized? Because if it is, then we as Californians really do have a serious problem. And we're running out of options. We are Red Star Report on KPFK Rebel Alliance News. This is Voices for the California Nation. So tonight's Red Star Report, it seems our running theme is going to be on organizing and demonstrations with contributions from Matt Owen and Sue Hirsch. So first up, we start clearing our backlog of segments with a short offering from Red Star Rising with Matt Owen as he talks to Flower from a womensmarch.com event 10 days ago.
Hello. I'm Matt Owen with Red Star Report, Voices for the California Nation, and you are?
I go by Flower.
Hello, Flower.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. And can you tell us a bit about why you're here and what's going on?
Today we are here at the behest of womensmarch.com, also on our Instagram page, Women's March. We are here to exercise our rights as women, to take to the streets, to share our signage, to voice our opinions and our frustration with the bans, the removal of Roe v. Wade, what is happening in Iran, the suffering of women and wombs and uteruses around the world. We're here to bring awareness and also to press our Congress and legislatures to start respecting us and put laws back in place, help refugees come from other states. We are trying to restore our rights as women.
Here in California, your rights are vouchsafed.
Yes, we are safe here in California, but there are women all over the country that have lost their rights. There are doctors and nurses that are being threatened with jail if they help women who want to get an abortion. There are women who have had miscarriages that are being put in prison because they're being told that they're murderers, which is just not true.
What happens if there is a federal ban on abortion put in place?
If there were a federal ban, I think we would really see a rekindle fury. I think abortion will continue no matter what bans are put in place. What they are banning is safe abortion. Abortion will happen in back alley. Abortion pills will continue to be sold. Abortion will happen in other countries. They will never stop us from having abortions, but they will try and stop us from having safe abortions.
I'm with the California independence movement. If we were independent of the U.S., there's no way they could ban abortion here.
That's true. I think that's far in the future, and it's not something I'm familiar enough to comment on. But I do think that we need to find a way to secure more of our independence. California has one of the largest economies in the entire nation, so it's understandable how we need a clearer understanding and a better way of functioning our economy, our people, our population. I mean, we have such a vast population here, and there are so many problems that are central to California that California and the federal government need to touch on. They can't treat California like any other state because we're not.
No, there are as many of us as there are Canadians, and we just passed Germany.
Oh my goodness, really?
Like I say, I am with the California independence movement. We do have a party, California National Party. We do have a web presence called Red Star Report, Voices for the California Nation, and Emigrant California Libre. Thank you endlessly.
Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Did anyone else catch it? If you were watching closely in the video, you'll note that something funny happened in that 3-minute conversation. At first, Flower didn't know what to make of Matt or California independence, but by the end of their conversation, she's talking about greater California independence and the size of the California economy, quoting California independence talking points, 5th largest economy in the world. What Matt Owen has illustrated here is that Californians already know the California independence is a thing. Where the old 2016 CalExit ate itself being mostly anti-Trump, the hashtag new CalExit concept of independence based on ways of protecting California and Californians from an increasingly hostile, regressive, and unstable America has been normalized to the point of being already mentally locked and loaded. Californians already know. We just haven't seen enough people like Flower emotionally pull that "I'm done with the United States" trigger yet. But it's coming. America will see to that. Tonight, Red Star Report is pleased to bring you our first 2023 installment of Book Review California with Sue Hirsch. Sue's segment tonight features the book Capitalism Killed the Middle Class, 25 Ways the System is Rigged Against You. So right now, Red Star Report presents the Book Review California with Sue Hirsch interview with award-winning author, poet, humorist, union activist, publicist, former 2013 political candidate, and all-around good guy, Dan McCrory, Part 1.
Hey, it's Sue of Book Review California, folks. Thanks so much for being here and listening with us to Dan McCrory, author of
Capitalism Killed the Middle Class, 25 Ways the System is Rigged Against You.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Dan.
Thank you.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your book is about?
Well, the book started out as a memoir. I have been in the labor movement for over 40 years, and I wanted to pass along some of the things that I had learned while in the movement. However, I realized early on that not a lot of people know who I am or care who I am. So what I did while I was writing it was I decided to make it not only about me, but about the things that are coming down the road for the next generation. It's a gift it's my legacy to the next generation. So it includes things like the gig economy and a lot of the issues that are left over from our time, like the criminal injustice system here in California and throughout the nation, and other issues that are going to be relevant to the folks that are coming up through the system now.
Can you tell us how many of those 40 years with the labor union were you president of that labor union, and where you had come from and where the labor union was based?
I was only president for 3 years, one term, because unfortunately, a lot of unions are run like tyrannies, I guess, or benevolent dictatorships. I got involved in the labor movement back in 1974 in Denver, Colorado, when I started working at the phone company right out of high school. What happened was in 1974, they started bringing in these big computers, and these computers needed to have the room be cold, or otherwise they would shut down from the heat. So at that time, they didn't have anything called a cold room. So we had to walk around in July wearing sweaters. And we said, this is wrong. This is not the way things should be. So what we did was we put together what we call a wildcat strike. And we walked out on a Thursday, got suspended on a Friday, and reported back to work on Monday. But that created the cold rooms that we all now know as where the computers are stored. And from that point, I realized how strong the labor movement is. It's as strong as you want it to be, and as much as you dedicate to making things better for working people.
That is, as I understand it, part of what you meant by the system that's currently rigged against us. Can you expound on that a little more?
After World War II, with the president like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the middle class grew to be really strong, and were able to accomplish things. One parent worked, the other one stayed home, and we were still able to send the kids to college, buy a house, and live the American dream. That's no longer possible for a variety of reasons. For instance, let's just take the education system. We went from people being encouraged to apply for grants to pay for their schooling to applying for loans, because that is the capitalist system where you try to make a buck off of somebody who's trying to better their lives. And so that's just one example of the way that capitalism has undermined the American dream.
There is a strike currently going on. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. The university students and staff members are on strike against the colleges that are not paying staff enough and not paying interns enough to live near their colleges and near their workplaces. So they are on strike. Do you know anything about that current strike?
Yes, somewhat. I was involved in one that they had a number of years ago, and it was we picketed UCLA, and they had UPS was trying to deliver packages, but as you know, they're Teamsters, and we said, could you not deliver those packages? Could you turn around and go back to the office? And that's exactly what they did. They supported us totally, and that's one of the things that's missing, and why we're being exploited, why these things are happening, because we don't have the support of the general public. People have forgotten what it means to be a labor person. And this particular strike now is more of the same. And all we can do is try to educate and inform the general public, and make sure that our own union members understand what it is we're striking for and why that's so important, because it's the last thing that you can use as leverage at the bargaining table is the threat of a strike. So if that's no longer considered effective, like in the railroad workers case, then you end up going hat in hand to the corporation or the corporation in most cases to try to accomplish to get what you want out of this particular upcoming contract. And I'm going to be out there walking picket lines with these folks, and I encourage others to join us out there, because what they're striking for is the future of our system. I have a friend who's an adjunct professor in Massachusetts, and she was telling me of cases where some adjunct professors aren't making enough to even find a place where they live, and they're living out of their cars.
And can you tell us again where your strike is going to be?
I'm trying to line that up now as far as the final details, but anywhere the UC system exists is a place where you can get involved with those workers.
Your book that you wrote it for people like these people who are striking, the working class. That was your target audience, is that right?
Definitely. That's my book is meant for activists of all kinds. I even created a study guide so that people could learn, delve into it a little bit more. My ideal situation I'm trying to set up now is to get 10 to 20 political activists together with 10 to 20 labor activists and have them interview each other with questions from the study guide, because I think this would create a synergy, and we have both groups have something to learn from each other.
Agree wholeheartedly, especially the Collexit movement. We have so many different branches and organizations within the movement, and we really need to continue to work together more.
Coalitions are really important for building power.
How is the spirit of California in particular reflected in your book?
There are so many different ways, because California is seen as a leader in the country as well as the world. We just surpassed Germany as far as the fourth strongest economy in the world. And that's amazing when you think about it, especially with all the naysayers who are saying that people are leaving California in droves. Granted, it is one of the most expensive places to live in the country, but all of these naysayers would have you believe that California is going down the tubes, and nothing could be further from the truth. My book deals with the breakup of the phone company that happened in 1984. The courts by the time I started working at the phone company in 1973, a company called MCI WorldCom sued AT&T because they were being kept out of the long distance market, which was the big moneymaker at the time. A lot of people probably don't remember that, or weren't alive at the time, but that's what occurred. And so eventually back and forth between the company, AT&T and MCI, it was determined that the U.S. government needed to break up the phone company. And so when they did that, there all of a sudden there were 7 baby bells, and they fought for continued existence, for survivability. And there was this one company out of Texas called SBC, and they bought Pacific Bell, which is what we were at the time, and in 1995, I believe it was. And they said that they were going to not touch us for like 5 years. They read of our contract with a fine-tooth comb, and then started moving jobs from California to Texas because they could pay workers less and offer them less as far as benefits go. So my union at the time lost about a third of our members. We were about 2,000 members, and we went down to about 1,200 members. And as you know, anytime you see those kind of layoffs, you have this ripple effect that goes out to the community. It affects peripheral businesses like your local supermarket, restaurants where workers used to go to eat for lunch and things like that. And not to mention the state's tax base, which means less money for schools, roads, all the things that we expect from our government to make a life livable in the state of California or wherever you live. So when that happened, that caused, as I said, a ripple effect throughout the community, throughout the state, in ways that were unintended consequences of those kinds of actions by government.
For people who might be just tuning in, I'm going to let them know that we're talking to Dan McCrory today on Red Star Report podcast on YouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're just tuning in now, folks, Dan McCrory wrote a wonderful book that everybody should read. Absolutely everybody should read this book. It's called Capitalism Killed the Middle Class, 25 Ways in Which the System is Rigged Against You is the subtitle of this wonderful book, Capitalism Killed the Middle Class. And you're listening to me, Sue Hirsch, on Red Star Report with Book Review California. And Dan McCrory was with the labor union, or has been with the labor union since 1974 and still is. And he was a president of that union for how many years?
Only 3 years, but I was on the executive board for 9. I was involved in so many different ways in the union because I saw that to have a real control of my own destiny, I had to get involved. That's the Communication Workers of America.
You said something about your book having been entered in a wild card category. I'm unfamiliar with that. Can you tell me what that means?
Well, actually, that's my other book, and we'll talk about that.
Excuse
This particular book was entered in a contest with a British corporation called Page Turner Awards, and I entered it, and I was a finalist with this particular book, which since they invented the English language, it was kind of a real honor to be recognized for my writing with that particular company.
You've written a few other books, have you not?
I've written 2 so far. I've got about 4 in the works, and some of them are closer than others. There's a couple of sequels to the Capitalism book. One's called Rebuilding Union, because we're seeing a lot of different things happening in the union movement now with the baristas at Starbucks, with the warehouse workers at Amazon, and even there's a strip club in North Hollywood that the workers there are trying to organize, and dignity for all workers is what we're aiming for. So I'm really encouraged by the millennials, especially, who realize that being part of the labor movement is a no-brainer. It's a way to a secure future.
Is there anything that I have not yet asked you about the book we were discussing, which was How Capitalism Killed the Middle Class, that you would really like for me to ask you?
Prop 13 here in California has been very important for saving a lot of people from losing their homes, and but it too has had unintended consequences, because the money from property taxes is what was used to keep our schools maintained and provide good education. And we're one of the best schools in the nation before Prop 13 passed, but it hasn't been because we're saving old folks from losing their home. It's because there's a loophole in the law that allows corporations to take advantage of it. And corporations were never meant to be part of Prop 13. And they've, for instance, when Pacific Bell was bought by SBC, and they changed their name to AT&T because that was more better known name. They didn't have their taxes reassessed for the new corporation that was coming into California. And so we've over the years, because of these kind of corporate moves, we've lost millions of dollars that could have helped our schools, that could have helped with the local tax structure, and created a lot more jobs. And so we're a victim on that based on this corporate loophole that we've been trying to fix for the last several years. In fact, in 2008, I ran for state assembly, and that was one of my one of the things on my things to do list once I got elected was to close that loophole. And there's something called the split roll tax, which would be the homeowner versus the corporation. And if you could split those two, then it would be advantageous to raising the kind of money that we need to maintain a good standard of living, and our schools, our roads, all those things that have been hurt by the fact that these corporations have been exploiting this loophole.
So let me make sure I've got this right. Because of a policy loophole or a loophole in policy or regulation somewhere, money that was supposed to go to housing and education and fixing up our infrastructure instead went to corporations. Is that right?
That's that's it in a nutshell. It allowed them to hang on to money that otherwise would have been expended, getting a tax reassessment from the state, and then having to pay more taxes because it was no longer a company owned by a local state company, but somebody from outside the state.
And that happened here in California.
Yeah, there are other states now that are looking at something similar, and I hope they get it right and not create this loophole like we did here in California.
You mentioned in emails to me the era of jobs being exported from here in the US to overseas and Mexico and Canada. Were jobs exported to Canada, or were we in some sort of trade alliance with Canada and Mexico? And I'm getting things a little mixed up.
That's okay. Well, a lot of people don't realize that before NAFTA under Clinton, there was something called the maquiladora experiment under Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan hurt a lot of working people during his tenure as president, and even before that as governor of California, because when he was governor, he closed down the mental hospitals, and that was our first big wave of homeless folks on the streets. But when he was president, he created this maquiladora experiment, and he encouraged companies, gave them tax credits for moving their businesses down to Mexico, because Mexico cheaper labor. I talked to somebody in Mexico and said, what is your minimum wage like? And they said 50 cents an hour. How do you compete with that when ours we're shooting for $15, but it's still short of that. But that's hard to compete with. And so since then, we've had this rush to the bottom as far as pay goes and benefits. Another thing Mexico wasn't doing was protecting their environment. They've since created a couple laws recently that are supposed to take better care of their environment. But a lot of companies picked up and moved to Mexico, and they no longer exist in the United States, and it's really caused some hurt. But NAFTA just made things a lot worse. And what we need to do is bring some of those jobs back. And there has been a concerted effort by my union, the Communication Workers of America, to bring back especially a lot of those IT jobs from India. This race to the bottom, the only one that's going to be hurt by that is us. And because we were paying pretty decent wages, and we haven't we lost all those jobs. So there's a lot of non-skilled workers who have nothing to turn to now.
And this is just another one of the many, many ways, I'm sure there are more than 25, in which we are being screwed over by the system.
Yes.
Because it is rigged against us, as you said in your book title.
And in fact, I have 25 chapters, so I figured there's at least one per chapter that really hurts us all.
Thank you, Sue. Look for part 2 of Capitalism Killed the Middle Class, 25 Ways the System is Rigged Against You, an interview with author Dan McCrory next week on Book Review California with Sue Hirsch. For more information or to purchase this book, you can go to Amazon.com and we'll furnish the link in the description below.
This is Shankar Singham with Red Star Report. I'm reporting in front of the City Hall building in downtown Long Beach in front of Robert Garcia's office, where a group of protesters have gathered to protest our participation in the war in Ukraine.
Rep Garcia.
What's your name and why are you here today?
You're right. My name is Rachel Brunke, and I'm an organizer with several organizations, San Pedro Neighbors for Peace and Justice and Code Pink. And we're out here today because this is the third of our continuous rallies in the Southern California area at different congressional representatives' offices. We're right now at the new representative, Robert Garcia, in Long Beach, and we're saying no more war spending. He replaces a pretty good representative, Alan Lowenthal, who usually was pretty good on votes for peace, and we're saying that Rep. Garcia should start a legacy of peace votes and not for war. So it is no accident that we are just months after getting out of a 20-year war against Afghanistan, all of a sudden we find ourselves in another war. People are baffled. They're broke. They're afraid. And everywhere we go on the streets, sir, every shopping mall, every parking lot, all the time we leaflet with these leaflets. People are listening. They don't want this war. So we're here to say that the media is lying to the people, and they're lying to you through your screens, making it seem like we consent to this war. Democracy is the agreement by consent. We do not consent to this war, and we are finding on the street that people don't consent to this war either. They don't want more war spending. There's so many problems in our towns, in this country, and in the world. And I think, sir, that not only are there a lot of problems, there's a lot of cool solutions that people know about. And so they're not buying that war is just another solution. So what we're trying to do here on the street is educate people that it was no accident that Russia invaded. We wish they hadn't. We think they should have used more diplomacy. We actually think that Russia has a lot of friends in the United Nations. And had they really been feeling up against the wall, being pushed to the wall by NATO, which they have been, they should have even gone farther with diplomacy and shouting out and screaming to the world before they invaded. So we are not pro-invasion, but we know that we purposely, especially the U.S. War industry, war is a racket, pushed this country up against the wall, and they invaded. And so we are here to say, let's stop this war. No more new weapons, because it only makes money for the weapons industry and kills a lot of Ukrainians and a lot of Russians, and pretty soon it's going to kill Americans. So watch out for this. And one more thing, we are in Long Beach, but this is part of the greater LA area, right? This area is seeped in blood money. It's seeped in the money of war. All the wealth, all the enjoyment, all the so-called development, that has so much war written all over it. Ever since the end of World War II, we should have shut down the war economy in this area, but we didn't. And so the whole Cold War is sort of an invention to continue the arms manufacturing that started during World War II. So this is a deep problem. And I'm sorry, Americans, we have to start getting deep about our understanding, and your lives will get better. But right now, this war and war spending is ruining our lives. That's the finger we need to be pointing at. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Finally, for tonight, we go to Activism in Action with Shankar Singham for a little #Wake the Bear wisdom about the realities of protesting and demonstrating in today's political climate. An introductory to a series of segments Red Star Report will be putting together for people who are new to California activism. For those questions you may have regarding what you can do as a Red Star rebel to advocate for a free, independent California, peacefully and safely. Let's go to Shankar.
Thank you, Hal, and welcome to another episode of Activism in Action. I am just coming back from the Anthony Lowell protest, or actually coming back from right before it starts, because I decided to leave because I saw a couple things that gave me the chills to kind of just leave the area, because I did not like how it was being set up. What I saw was there was police barricades on one end of the block where the rally was going to happen, and the other end was wide open, meaning they were getting ready to corral the protesters as they come in. So I thought to myself, as I was leaving, you know what a better way of to do another episode than to inform everybody of activist precautions, right? So let's get right into it, right? Activist precautions. The first one really is your escape route. Know your escape route. Where have a line of sight to your vehicle or to the route that you're planning on leaving. All right. Make sure it's not blocked off, whether that be in another street or a sidewalk or an alleyway. Make sure you have access to it at all times. If you drove there, make sure you have access to your vehicle. Make sure that has you have a line of sight to that, and make sure that vehicle has a way of escaping. Usually I would advise parking the vehicle a few blocks away from the protest site and biking it in or walking it in, and then having the escape route to your vehicle. All right. Super important, having your escape route. Okay. A police corral. What the police are going to attempt to do, which is why it's important to have your escape route, is corral you and all the protesters that are there. Because when you're dealing with about, anywhere from 20, 50, 100 people, they're going to deploy a large corral, meaning they're going to have one end of the activist area sealed off, so nothing can come in and out, no traffic can come in and out, and the other end they're going to keep open for everybody to come in. And once everybody's in, they will seal that off, and everybody that's inside gets arrested. Okay, they have deployed that for 50 years now, folks. Protesting is nothing new to the police officers. They have the tactics down. So when you notice that one of your escape routes are blocked, or the pathway to the protest site is blocked with barricades, guess what? Make sure there's another opening or leave. I can't tell you how important that is, okay? Which is what I did. I left. Second thing is having spotters. So you want to have a spotter at each end of the block at each protest. So that person can sit there, and usually this is done by a two-way radio. That person can sit there and inform you of anybody coming in and out that's of pertinent information. So like say you're protesting and there's some counter protesters coming. You want that person to say, hey, there's some counter protesters on their way in. Looks like they're conservative. There's about 10 of them, because the people that come after the protest has started, these are the troublemakers. These are the ones that are looking for fights. These are the ones that are going to try to instigate something. And why not? They're not going to get arrested because they're conservatives, right? And usually cops are conservative, which gets to my next point. Cops are conservative. They're not on your side. They laugh at your side. If you were to see a video of a conservative protest, you should see how the police treat them. It's high fives and shaking hands. It's unbelievable. Counter that to how the police treat leftist organizations, environmentalists, animal rights, you name it. Anything to the left is the exact opposite treatment of, hey, buddy, hey, how you doing? And a high five and a fist bump to the other conservatives, because cops are conservatives. It's a matter of fact. The National Police Union is endorsed Trump. It's just a point that cops are conservative. And when they do come to you in the middle and before a rally, and they're trying to get information such as, hey, who's in charge here? Who's organizing this? What's your name? What's your phone number? Do not give them any information. You can stay silent. It's not against the law. He does not suspect you of any crime. You don't have to give any information at all. If you want to give information, you can give a fake name if you want, just to engage with the police officer. He's not suspecting you of a crime, so giving a fake name is not against the law. Phone number, get his phone number. Get his phone number and say, hey, you know what? I'll call you if we need it, okay? That's the best way I could tell about dealing with the police if they come up to you and talk to you. The last thing, if you are trapped in a corral and the cops looks like they're getting ready to do something, first, usually the police will send out a couple of officers to come out and bum rush a couple of said protesters, maybe one by a watering tent or by your supplies, and they will take your supplies. They will take your water. They will take your food. A few officers will come out. They'll take your food and run back to the police line and hoard that water and hoard those resources that you were having there. And you're wondering, why is this cop coming here taking all of our waters and our drinks and our food and our snacks? Well, they're hoarding all that because they're trying to clear the field. They don't want their food getting messy before they come and wipe you out. So a couple of things that they will deploy: beanbag shotguns. Okay, they look like a shot. It looks like a shotgun with a big barrel on it. They hurt, folks. They sting. When that beanbag comes shooting at you, it will, no matter where it lands on you, it's going to take you down to the ground. If it hits you on the foot, it's going to take you on the ground. If it takes you on the head, it's going to take you down to the ground. Beanbag. They love the beanbag shotguns. Also, they have a couple of weapons that look like big military tanks. They're big, oversized vehicles with a round, sort of satellite dish looking thing on it. I'm not sure what that machine is called, but it will emit a ear-piercing sound that will literally drive you nuts. You will run away because it hurts your ears. I don't know what that machine is called. I'll try to look it up, but it is very effective. It will clear the road very fast, unless you have some sort of ear protection on, which you never think of having that. But the beanbag shotgun and that large sonic machine that they have are very, very effective. They do use that. They also have, the sheriff's department also has a fully automatic beanbag shooter, meaning it'll shoot 3-4 beanbags at a time. How do they come up with these weapons? I don't know, but that's some of the weapons, non-lethal weapons, that they will deploy at a activist protest. Okay, I hope this helps. Hope this gives you some warning, some insight into what to expect. I wish all the folks out there right now at Anthony Lowe protest good luck. That's all I got for you, Hal. Thanks.
Thank you, Shankar. And keep checking out Red Star Report to look for new hashtag Wake the Bear Red Star Rebel Activism segments in the coming weeks. That's it for podcast number 2 of our 3rd season. And if you're still watching, thank you. As always, for more information about Red Star Report, check out our website at redstarreport.com. Go and subscribe to our Red Star Report YouTube channel, please. Go to our Red Star Report Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram, and give us a like, give us a follow. Because if you want to support the real California Independence Movement's media group, it's all about the algorithms. Our thanks to you and all our Red Star Rebels for watching. We are Red Star Report.